Welcome to the Beginner's Caricature series. This is my friend Ted, and this is the finished caricature that he's holding. And today we're going to work on exaggeration, how to give a caricature life. It's the essence of caricaturing. So let's get started. As always, the first step is to start with observation. And when we start to caricature someone, we want to see how his face differs from a standard face. In Ted's case, I noticed that his head, he's got a very high forehead and a great head of hair. Your observations are a reflection a lot of times of your own personality. So in my case, I'm as bald as a cue ball. So I always notice guys who have a full head of hair. His eyes have angled eyebrows, and he's got almost like a blue steel look from whatever that Ben Stiller movie, Zoolander. His mouth is long with there's more distance between the bottom of his nose and the top of his mouth than in a standard face. And he's got narrow lips. His ears are long as well, and I probably want to catch the skin around his neck, those lines around it. So those are my observations. Now let's move to step 2. Now, before drawing the basic face shape, I want to make the point that drawing a likeness is not easy. With the first 2 people in these videos, Richmond and Jin, they were easier because they had really standout features. Richmond, he looks like Jesus with a big chin. And Jin, she's got that huge smile. But with someone like Ted, his standout features are not as clear. So as a beginner, you should realize that even for experienced caricatures, there's a lot of messing up. I drew a lot of crappy likenesses of Ted, draft after draft, before I finally got to this one. Now, this one looks fine, and there's some exaggeration in the forehead, but it's sort of blah. And so now we're going to focus on some principles that you can use to exaggerate your caricature, to give it life and spark, without feeling like you're doing it by being totally random. You want to go back to your original observations and just go about making your original points stronger. And the first way you do it is by utilizing contrast. So with his eyes, for example, earlier I said he had a blue steel look like in the Zoolander movie, and that's where you make one eye bigger than the other. So just make sure you make one eye really big, and at the same time make the other eye smaller as well. I made the point earlier that the distance between his nose and mouth was bigger than normal and that the mouth was long, so you want to highlight that. Bring the mouth closer to the chin, and also make the chin a little bit narrower to increase the contrast with the long mouth. Another technique that I use a lot is asymmetry, especially in the mouth and in the eyebrows. I use it all the time. So you want to make one side of the mouth taller than the other. That gives it a little bit of spark. And with the eyebrows, I amplify the angles because I mentioned earlier that they were very angular, but I also differentiate one eyebrow from the other. I make them asymmetrical. Another principle is to simply change your visual vocabulary. My ear is really boring, so there's a lot of caricature ears out there that have more life to them, so just find one that has a bit of spark and then just apply it. At this point, you should see a big difference in the expressiveness of the caricature, but I'm going to now add a little bit more. I'm going to focus on accentuating curves. So I'm accentuating the curves of his cheek, adding a little bit of curve to that jowl, and I'm adding a little bit of curve to the neck to make sure that it's just not totally straight. And there you go. This is a much stronger, livelier foundation drawing. You can keep tweaking it. Maybe I could add a little bit of lines to the neck and whatnot. But from here on out, it's really just a matter of going over this drawing with a more careful pen and brush to get to the finished caricature. To summarize, we went over some principles that can help you give life to your caricatures. Adding contrast and asymmetry, amplifying curves, and when in doubt, just borrow an element from another artist. As a beginner, I would have looked at the drawing on the right and thought that it was really different from the one on the left. But the one on the right is really just a tracing of the one on the left. The challenge with the one on the right is really just handling your pen with some dexterity. But the important drawing and the one that you really want to focus your attention on as a beginner is the foundation drawing. That's the one that has all of your ideas and observations. So I hope this was useful for you, and keep drawing.